Hey, what is going on, you Bumble and Bee Barrel? So before we take a look at the new cards, and there's some bangers in there, so you definitely want to stick around to take a look at those. We'll be going over those in a bit. I want to kind of talk about the fact that there'll be no more League Cups or League Challenges for the rest of the season. And I actually personally expected them to be starting up around this time. If like the regionals were going to happen and the international championships were going to happen and Worlds was going to happen this year, I expected League Cups and League Challenges to return about right now, February. But as of today, it was pretty much confirmed, as you can see here on the League Challenge page and the League Cup page right here, that for the rest of the 2022 season, League Cups and League Challenges will not be returning. And you know what, to be honest, I think that is probably fine overall. Like getting all that stuff to get together and get going again from where we've come from and what we're going towards. It'd be quite a hassle, especially for only about half a season of the Pokemon trading card game. So I definitely don't think it's the worst choice ever from Pokemon. I think this is probably a fine decision overall. Of course, I'm curious how it's going to affect you guys personally. And are you guys going to try and, if you had championship points from, 2-3 years ago, are you going to try and finish that invite knowing there's no local events to go to anymore and then try and just pick up the points off of regional championships? And if you're someone who's completely new to the circuit, it's your first time playing competitively the Pokemon trading card game, and you plan to go to IRL events as they're coming back, are you going to attempt to get a Worlds invite at all? It's going to be a pretty steep climb if the championship point threshold remains 500 points. Or is that what it was? It was a 500 or 400. To be honest, I don't even remember anymore. I think it's 500. If it remains 500 points without local events, even if you make it to, let's say, half the regionals here, if you're in North America, let's say if you make it to half the North American regionals, that's a very steep ask, to be honest. And even if you place well at the IC, it'd still be pretty difficult overall, to be honest. So I personally expect them to probably drop the point total for the invite. I don't know where they would put it, maybe 300, maybe 250 even, because we really don't have much of a season to work with. We have basically half the amount of regionals we'd normally have, or even less. I don't even remember how many we had 3 years ago. It's been so long. And then there's no cups and no challenges, so I wouldn't be surprised if they, lessen the amount of points you actually needed to get a Worlds invite. But I could see them just kind of keeping it the way it is and just kind of run it and being like, for anyone who has championship points, it's obtainable. Anyone who doesn't, if you want to participate in these big Pokemon events and kind of get the experience more so than try and play for your Worlds invite, play for the win at the regionals still, and maybe you can win 3 regionals in a row and that would get you your Worlds invite, right? So it's still possible for anyone, but it'd be pretty tough to do that. Not many players have ever, if anyone has ever achieved that. There's probably someone out there. I think Sosa maybe has, but you get what I'm saying. Pretty tough to get your Worlds invite if it remains 500 points. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lowered the amount of points for the Worlds invite, but I also wouldn't be overly surprised if they didn't change anything at all. But let me know what you guys think about it. No cups, no challenges. And then, are you going to try and get that Worlds invite? Do you have points? Do you not have points? And what do you plan to do as far as getting back into the swing of things as the first couple of regionals are starting to come up here in the next month in March? Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about and take a look at is the new leaked cards from Japan. And the first one we're going to take a look at here, there's some big ones. It's not a huge one yet, but it's a sparkling Heatran. Everyone's been kind of making fun of the artwork of this one. He does look a little derpy, but he's got a very interesting attack. 70 damage times the amount of damage counters on the Heatran for fire colors. So the energy cost is a little bit steep, but we are getting the Magma Basin, which allows us to accelerate fire energy to our benched fire Pokemon. So combo the Heatran with that, and it does deal 2 damage whenever you use the stadium on a fire Pokemon. There is some potential to actually hit really, really hard with this Heatran. I think it needs a little bit more than just the Magma Basin, but that's enough to get it going at the very least. But this would take your spot of your sparkling Pokemon, which is some very powerful sparkling Pokemon out there. So I don't know if you're going to want to use your sparkling Pokemon spot, even if you are already playing a fire deck on the Heatran, but I think it is definitely possible that you might go with Heatran. But I think it needs a little bit more help than just the Magma Basin, especially because it is also taking up the spot of your sparkling Pokemon there. Moving right along, I don't think there's any water Pokemon. Oh, I guess one we'll talk about. The 0 attack cost Pokemon are back. We got the Basculin here, and it has a call for family attack. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, play them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So I actually think this is a pretty strong card overall. One of the problem with call for family Pokemon in general is that if you don't open with it, to get it into your active consistently on your first turn and then attack with it is pretty unlikely, because it usually had the energy cost of 1, right? So if you have to attach retreat, and then attach to that, you can't do that. That's cheating. So you'd have to find a switch card, which is a lot harder to do than just be able to go attach, retreat, send up Baskin, or you couldn't consistently pull it off, right? Sometimes you could find your switch, find your air balloon, attach, call for family. But I think it's actually a pretty solid Pokemon to maybe start including in quite a few decks. It's kind of just like a one of you could play, and if you go second and you didn't get a fully, you didn't get a great initial setup. Maybe you found like one quick ball. You can go quick ball for your masculine, and that's going to find you 2 more Pokemon. And then you have like a 1 prize Pokemon in your active as well, which if your opponent wants to get a more relevant knockout on their turn, they're going to need a boss's orders to go with whatever else they have. So the masculine actually could be pretty solid just in general, in decks in general. It doesn't even have to be in a specific kind of deck. Could just be cool as a one-of in quite a few decks probably. So yeah, the Basculin, definitely something to look out for. Definitely very interesting Pokemon that can be utilized in a lot of ways. Definitely excited for that one. There's Sparkling Greninja, powerful card. We've gone over it before. We're looking for the new ones here. The Typhlosion V-Star. This is not too overwhelming of a card, but I think we should definitely go over it. 260 HP. It is a V-Star, so it's effectively a Stage 1 Pokemon. Psychic Colorless, 180. Put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. And then it has the Shadow Roaster. I actually just read the attack name for the first time. Shadow Roaster. V-Star attack for one psychic energy. If the opponent's active Pokemon has 4 damage counters on it, it's knocked out. So kind of like the Yveltal GX there, where if you had 4 damage counters on the Pokemon, you would just kind of knock it out. And that was kind of played in Eternatus for a little bit. The Eternatus was like 4 Zigzagoon, 4 Scoop Up Net. Wasn't played too heavily. It was like okay. But yeah, the Typhlosion, a little underwhelming overall. I think the first attack is like okay, but you're not 1-hit KOing anything. You're 2-hit KOing other V-Stars. And then, of course, being able to 1-hit KO anything is nice, but setting up those 4 damage counters, probably a little bit harder to do than we think consistently, and then having yourself end up ahead in the prize trade is kind of the thing. You have to end up ahead in the prize trade overall when your first attack doesn't have any potential to get a 1-hit KO. I'm not loving the Typhlosion V-Star, but it might be better than I think. We'll have to wait and see for sure. Moving right along to the Diancie. This is another card kind of like the Basculin that I really, really like as kind of I went second. Let's kind of get some value out of putting something in my active, basically. With the Basculin, you search for 2 Pokemon. With the Diancie, its ability says as long as this Pokemon is in your active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your benched basic Pokemon. So specifically benched basic Pokemon. So you can't have anything evolved, but if you're going second on your first turn, if you can just get this into the active, you really limit your opponent's options for what they can actually knock out, basically just a Diancie, because people really aren't playing Cross Switcher consistently or like Pokemon Catcher. Sometimes there's some escape ropes, of course, but if your opponent can't boss KO the V you're trying to set up for the following turn, that's a pretty big deal. So I actually really, really like this Diancie for that kind of play right there. As you just go second, put Diancie in the active, and you're like, okay, you can't knock out my V that I'm setting up because you can't play your boss on it. Or maybe they can't, like, I don't know, Yell Grunt or something. I don't know. It does stop those as well, but the most relevant one out of all supporters right now is definitely boss. Right now, boss's orders in this way is it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. So I really like this as a potential one of in quite a few decks. Just so when you go second, you kind of really limit your opponent's option on their next turn of being too aggressive, and give yourself plenty of time to set up your attackers and get them set up, and maybe even be the first person to take a super relevant attack or knockout. So big fan of the Diancie. Moving along, we got the Decidueye V-Star, which actually seems pretty strong overall. 270 HP. And then for Fighting Colorless, 160 damage plus 30 for each energy you discard out of your hand, up to 3 energy. So you can do a max of, 250 damage. You get a Choice Belt involved, and you're doing 280 damage, which is 1-hit KOing most other V-Stars. You're not quite getting big 1-hit KOs on V-Maxes, but that's still pretty powerful overall. And then the ability Winds and Clouds Star. During your turn, you may draw cards from your deck until you have 8 cards in your hand. So basically draw up to 8. So a consistency ability here, similar to kind of the Arceus. Searching out any 2 cards might be a little bit better, but if you want more than 2 cards, this V-Star power is definitely very strong as well. I mean, you can get all the way down to 0 cards and draw up to 8. So that's pretty good, especially with Ultra Ball coming back in the format. That's definitely possible. And like I said, the attack pretty powerful as well. You can 1-hit KO any other V-Star Pokemon for the most part if you get the Choice Belt involved. So pretty strong overall. I'm a fan of the Decidueye. Maybe not going to be good off the bat when we first get it. Of course, we're a little bit away from that. We don't even have Brilliant Stars quite yet, but that's coming out next week. Yeah, so maybe not going to be great off the bat because I don't know how it'll match up against VMAX Pokemon, but if V-Stars become the kind of go-to decks in the format, then this could be good right when it comes out. We'll have to wait and see VMAX to V-Star ratio and how the V-Stars kind of do up against the VMAXs, or if we're going to be sitting on the VMAXs for a little bit longer until we get more V-Stars in the format. Keep moving along. The Mighty Anna is a pretty big card to be coming out. It has the ability Hustle Bark. If your opponent has any VMAX Pokemon in play, this Pokemon's attacks cost colorless. It only has 1 attack, and it does 160 damage for 0 energy if your opponent has a VMAX Pokemon in play. So not only does that 2-hit KO any VMAX in the format, it specifically 1-hit KOs Mew VMAX. That's right, this Pokemon just 1-hit KOs Mew VMAX. So it can be easily teched into a lot of decks as maybe like a 2-2 line. If your deck just doesn't do that well against Mew VMAX, you're probably doing okay now. So this will be interesting when this card comes out. It might completely shove Mew VMAX out of the format, which to be honest, I would not mind at all. I would be 100% down with that. But it's also very possible it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it counters it, but no one plays it. Or we could have one of those kind of situations where it's like, oh, you play the Mightyena, or Mightyena is popular now. Okay, don't play Mew VMAX. Okay, no one's playing Mightyena. Okay, I'm gonna play Mew VMAX. Kind of have that Decidueye situation where it's like if Decidueye is popular, you're playing the Phoebe or the the Phoebe or whatever to counter it, or whatever basic attackers you want to use. And as soon as Decidueye is not really a deck in the format because everyone's playing Phoebe, you cut your Phoebe, and it kind of keeps rotating around and around and around. So we'll see. Definitely a very strong card against Mew VMAX, but is it good against much else? That's kind of the thing, right? If V-Stars kind of take over the format overall, and maybe Mew VMAX is the only VMAX in the format, do you really want to be playing a 2-2 Mightyena in your deck when it's only good up against one matchup that maybe isn't even that popular by then? We'll have to see how good the Mightyena is up against VMAXs in general. Specifically very good against Mew VMAX for sure, but will it be popular enough to warrant playing the Mightyena? Who knows? The next V-Star to take a look at is the Samurott V-Star for Dark. First when I read this card, I thought it was Dark Color, so I was like, it's okay, but it's actually Dark Energy, and we're getting Dark Patch pretty soon as well. It does 110 damage, and if the opponent's active Pokemon has any damage counters on it, 110 more. So we're looking at 220, at least 230, because it has to have damage counters on it, which I'm sure your deck is going to play some way to do that, or why are you playing the Samurott V-Star? And then the ability, once during your turn, you may put 4 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So the V-Star power is a little bit underwhelming, to be honest. 4 damage counters on one Pokemon. It does set up for your attack very well to KO other V-Stars, of course, but it would have been nice if you could like spread the damage out wherever you want. Like put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon wherever you want, but it is 4-1, so it's a little bit more limited in the options. The V-Star power is like okay, like sets up your attack obviously, which is great, but yeah, having to put 4 on one Pokemon doesn't feel as good. You know, you're going to be probably over KOing a lot with that most of the time. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it just works with the attack. Basically, the V-Star power does nothing super special about the V-Star power. It's whatever. We got the Hoot with a pretty cool ability to look out. As long as this Pokemon is in play, basic energy attached to your benched Pokemon can't be discarded by any effects of your opponent's items or supporters. So basically, an anti-Crushing Hammer card here on a basic Pokemon. Really cool to see. And it's, yeah, basic energy on benched Pokemon. But that if you're usually, the situation is if you're putting energy on your bench, you want it to be protected, and one of the ways your opponent can sometimes disrupt you from setting up is Crushing Hammer. So really cool to see this kind of card in the format as a nice answer to Crushing Hammer. Should it ever become super popular in the format again like it was a little while ago, just kind of a nice card to have around for those situations and give you like the option to counter it if you want. Up next, we got the Turbo Stall. You can only use this card. It's kind of like someone mentioned in my stream the other day that it's like a reverse wait and see hammer. You can use this card only if you go second and only on your first turn. Search your deck for a basic energy card attached to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck, your turn ends. So it's kind of like an extra energy into play for the turn. Your turn does end. So you're not going to want to be playing like 4 of these, right? Because if you play 4 of them, you're like, well, I did it, and now I have 3 dead cards in my deck, right? So it's going to be a 1 of or a 2 of, and you're going to want to be playing a deck that can somehow find these cards as well. And the only card that I can think of currently is Peony. I think Peony is the only card that could find this on your first turn going second consistently, allow you to utilize it, and then kind of go from there. But then you're playing Peony, which is a pretty iffy supporter card to want to play like 4 of to find on your first turn, so you can find your 1 of Turbo Stall or 2 of Turbo, 1 of your 2 of Turbo Stall. So this card, kind of cute, but without something like Green's Exploration in the format, probably not going to be great. But who knows? Maybe something like Green's Exploration or similar to it is on the rise, or coming out in future sets or whatever. Honey, flip a coin for each. Flip a coin until you get tails for each heads. Heal 40 damage from that Pokemon, or choose one of your Pokemon. Excuse me. I should read the full thing. Canceling collagen or canceling cologne. Your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities until the end of this turn, including Pokemon that move to the active spot during this turn. So if something in the active has like 10 HP left and you play the cologne and then you quick shooting ping it, when something new comes to the active, it still doesn't have an ability. So it's a pretty cool item card. It's not going to be too ridiculously popular, but it's a good answer to stuff like Duraludon or Decidueye. It's like a cool card to be able to have access to potentially if you want to have it play an answer to those kind of cards. So I definitely don't think it's like an overly oppressive answer to those decks. A lot of decks won't play it initially, and you'll kind of enter that situation of, oh, are people playing the Cologne? Are people not playing the Cologne? And if they are, you probably shouldn't be playing your Duraludon and Decidueye. And if they're not, Duraludon and Decidueye are probably pretty good. Decidueye is not very great in general, but you see what I'm saying, right? You see what I'm saying. So yeah, the Canceling Cologne is definitely pretty cool card. Not going to be a consistent factor in the formats, I don't think, but a nice answer when those pesky decks show up. Silent, flip 2 coins for each edge. Choose a card from your discard pile and put it on top of your deck in any order. So if you get 2 heads, you can put one over the other on top of the deck. And if you get 1 head, I mean, that's the only one you're going to put on top. Now, the biggest card coming out of this set, I think, that will potentially shake it up the most, shake up the format the most, shake up the meta, shake up how you play the game the most, is Roxanne. You can only play this card if your opponent has 3 or less prize cards left. Both players shuffle their hands into their deck. You draw 6 cards. Your opponent draws 2 cards. So basically, a comeback supporter. We haven't had one for a little while. It hasn't been too long, to be honest. And of course, the last one we had was Reset Stamp, and before that we had N. And to be honest, I thought they would maybe eventually get to the point where they reprinted, a Reset Stamp or an N, but they've come up with something new and different, which I love to see personally. Of course, I'm a huge fan, and if you guys have, hang out on my stream, or I probably mentioned in my videos a couple times, I love having it come back. Supporter, item card, trainer card, whatever in the format. I feel like it adds a lot of depth to games and allows a lot of decks that potentially weren't viable before to have some validity, or even allow decks to be able to be built around those cards as well. So I'm super excited for this supporter card. I think it's going to have a great impact on the game overall, and I think it's not as powerful as Reset Stamp or the N, because you can only play it when your opponent has 3 or less prize cards, unlike N, which you could kind of play consistently throughout the game. That's why so many decks played 4N when it was around, and you could use it early on to draw 6 cards, and as the game got later and later, and if you got behind and you want to disrupt your opponent's hand, you could put them down to 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, even 1 card with the N. And Reset Stamp, similarly, not as powerful as N, it kind of felt like overall, but you could do combos like play Reset Stamp, Reset Stamp your opponent from, like 8 cards to 4 cards, and also play a boss in your turn or something like that. So this one definitely feels less powerful overall than N or Reset Stamp, and it's just different. And I think it's really hard to judge how good and how much impact this card will have on the format, but I think just having the option and the idea of having the possibility of including or building a deck around a card like this is just great to always have in the format. And it might not be a constant thing like Reset Stamp and N were in most decks in the format, but I'm sure some decks will take big advantage of this, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of situations where this deck will be viable from game to game you play in the Pokemon trading card game. So I'm sure it'll be included in most decks as like a 2 of, and I'm sure Inteleon decks will definitely love this card because they can kind of pick what cards they want turn to turn out of their deck. So they'll be finding their Roxanne in those late game scenarios to disrupt their opponent's hand down to 2. Yeah, super excited for Roxanne. I think I'll add a ton to the game in a positive way. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as powerful as like the N or the Reset Stamp, but still have a good impact and give players more control over the game in a way that is just going to be healthy and better for the game overall. And it might even prompt the play of just not taking prize cards, right? If you're down to 4 prize cards and you're like, I could take this knockout, but I could not take the knockout so I don't get Roxanne, but I can still set up some plays so I can win in the same amount of turns, right? If you're still winning in 3 turns, but you're just not drawing prize cards this turn, you have to think a little bit harder. You have to go with a little bit more indirect route to close out the game. But now you're not getting Roxanne to 2 and getting your hand disrupted, and maybe your opponent doesn't have access to a draw supporter next turn because you didn't give them access to the Roxanne. So really excited for it. We'll see how it impacts the game when it comes out. That we're a little ways away from that. All right, Kamada, discard all cards from your hand except 1, then draw 4 cards. Another take on a draw 4 supporter, which probably won't see any play, but who knows? Maybe this time a draw 4 supporter. Pokemon just hasn't figured out how to make a good draw 4 supporter, to be honest. We haven't hit it yet. A bunch of different ways to draw 4 cards. None of them have ever been consistently powerful, but maybe that's what they're trying to avoid. I wouldn't be totally against our Pokemon just giving us a supporter that literally just said draw 4 cards, like Hop +1, you know what I'm saying? Not an upgraded Hop, whatever. So I wouldn't hate to see something like that. I don't think it would be game breaking, but maybe that 4th card is a lot better than I think. Every time I play Hop, it feels terrible. But if I could just have that 4th card, maybe my hand would be broken. Jubilife Village. Once during each player's turn, that player might shuffle their hand into their deck. If they do, they draw 5 cards and their turn ends. So kind of a take on, of course, Tropical Beach, giving yourself a stadium that allows you to draw some cards and then draw some cards and then your turn ends. So kind of like a new take on some kind of stadium like that. We've had couple in the past, or effects like that, like an Intrepid Sword or whatever. A way to end your turn while gaining some cards. So stuff your hand into your deck, draw 5, your turn ends. I mean, it's possible some decks play some kind of control or stall type deck. Decks that want to buy their time will definitely take advantage of this. And if anyone's playing an expanded and doesn't have tropical beaches, you might want to play some Jubilife Village. Yeah, you maybe want to play some Jubilife Village. I don't think any of the cards down here are worth mentioning. Yeah, these are ones we've all gone, or I've gone over before. So that's it, guys. Those are the new cards coming out. Excited for a bunch of them. Of course, Roxanne is the #1 card I'm looking at to hopefully have a huge impact on the game when it releases. If you guys enjoyed the video, as always, be sure to give a like if you enjoy the content. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.